Hello, I spoke the word correlation into the Google search engine, and it brought me to a definition that said a mutual relationship between two or more things. Now, this is true, for example, but it is not constantly true per the identity that is also true always, that actually was / is the value as what was is sequence true, that came before the order the finite now, therefore the smallest detail, the most finite thing, vaccine. And this is no joke. This evolution science only feels like game/s, because it is by the identity of volume that is harder and stronger than anything that can be made, while it is simultaneously its identity true as what is the identity that is the value of the order of the final. The most delicate is the identity of what is the value of what is delicate, what is finite, small. And for example, to perceive with physics and to perceive with metaphysics. Metaphysics is about the identity of volume /s. For example, that the subject, any subject /s, is simultaneously no. As a sequence nature, no. That comes in first as itself, as an increasing identity of volume, as English was revealed actually by the ancients, and with the ancient languages were revealed, understanding, because they were going by the identity of relationship to itself and the value of that this one identity of volume has. And there is also value in people not all agreeing on the name of this scientific value that is distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously how we are the species body, how we are the grouped bodies, ages, areas, sexes, locations, states, countries, the identity of the individual, of the group, and of the species identity of volume is inseparable from each, and it is native pure. So American history begins with where and how, for example. Correlation. Now this is each subject, it comes in first, for example, but simultaneously what comes in first is predicate, and is predicate value. That means verb. The verb's identity as a predicate. If you put ing on the end of a verb, it becomes a participle. It becomes a present participle. If you ask Google or another search engine I forget that. The point is, these are two identities, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, not just of the sentence. The sentence is an invisible but still discernible identity of volume. And what is in physics manifest is an identity of the ground. Distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous value / value progression with, not just as, to, with, to, from, as, with, and for. Itself, not just with those three identities of volume, but with their identity of relationship to what is completely true. Because one identity of truth is simultaneously still its identity without any exceptions, exception nature. As exception, exception nature. At the same time, still its identity of truth. That's what leads correlation nature. This is what keeps your identity, your value of correlation nature. Your value, use correlation nature simultaneously inherent, active, and progressive means. Identities. To understand as what is more finite than the most finite thing of any science. Anything that could be claimed complicated or simple, where and how there's one identity that is complicated and simple at the same time. See, we have the sciences are our victims that are manifest identities that we have, they call it faith in them first. We have, where our founders didn't have free speech and had free speech and had entertained, criminally legalized, criminal instances, relied upon by victims who had to react as syntax nature, as fact treatment nature, if you will, or as syntax nature, where and how this is a function that is native pure, no matter who you are. And so it's an increasingly positive value to be able to because it's easier to discern that and how Native American rights, not in contrast to us. See, the people put on what is on paper with money. The identities of industries, the identities of the individuals, groups, and the countries, are used like marionettes, individually grouped and together. They knew that they would have to be increasingly self-valued victim-predator roles, blaming the real causes of negative value nature, progressive acts and natures, where they had to hide, where every position of formal, where they need to pretend to be able to speak for justice, or for positive or negative, or for identity, or for locations. See, this is a locations thing that is a subject. So if you try to make short words, increasingly, each age, unless except for all exceptions, exception nature were engineered to keep already having been kept, hundreds of nations at once, criminally foreign influence, victim predator reactions, engine defense of that. The whole time the war wasn't being engineered, are uses of the premises treatment, uses of sequence shift self-value, uses of identity thefts, frauds, roles, styles, needs, natures, blaming on other things. It knew that this was going to happen. That our short words are prevented because they use the method of separating subjects. And then they pretend they don't know what the people are talking about because they make use of juxtaposed natures of organized crime with each age of fact treatment nature. So if you call up to report simple, serious abuses of kids recorded, where it involves them, where the interbranch and foreign are in collusion through a whole bunch of, through this, as victim predators, blamed on other things other than themselves. Then they had to hide live aggression. They had to hide remote uses of themselves. There's a pattern of this is how they keep the nervous system of everyone through time connected. I'm using the word nervous system because I don't want to use Jane Austen's phrase. I want to show what's coming up to it. Because it's relevant now because correlation is not being allowed to be used as evidence. They are replacing, and they have been replacing, what is actually recorded. What is actually having been recorded on Facebook. Before and after, to hide it, Facebook was brought before Congress. And with who they claim, I don't know if he's a real FBI director because they lie. He admits they're recorded involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, in his defending capacities. Personally, criminally involved with them. Not just in the cases, but with their uses of campuses and of private database relationships simultaneously. Even medical campuses. Even fire campuses. And this is in the syntax method where we are function /s. And so where we are function /dysfunction, there is the subject of that breaching method that was entrenched here since before our founding parents. Now we have people with physical delusions as the experts on the mind and such like that. And we have them getting away with it because of how they were kept needing to hide live aggressions. And worse, offensively. People with all the overt criminal enterprises simultaneously, but differentially where it's the identity is being exploited with the branch of the government, and killers, and people on off their body dumpers, all kinds of things, relationship to statistics, and to the identity of the ground of each age of campus, each nature of them, everywhere they are. Originally and still, homeschool too. That fake difference, though that difference everywhere it is increasingly valued to understand how it is a native pure volume science. So victims were hurt, tricked, persuaded, and worse, taken to positions to screen that and to pretend other for a breaching method with theory, like the theory of relativity, used as a method to offensively, in the furtherance of this identity theft fraud's roles, self-valuing increasingly how this was through time. Recorded they were separating subjects about all that is tied to where there was all mass corruption. No. And that's increasingly self-value because it's only capable of being corruption. Persons before cars, the pathology of the streets and of what would unfold, where and how we are value/value progression. Where Native Americans first were separated from, and simultaneously last, they were separated from what they remembered about ancient revelations and all that had been gathered for the perfection of that method that revealed how to reveal evolution's fruits and gifts. And what Santa Claus being about positive and negative, for example, is about. So they have the what is simultaneously simple about computers and what is complicated about computers. They are self-valuing how they have from off campuses, how has been from off campuses, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, all kinds of killers, killers, a serial killer, people associated with the body dumping spots, and uses of the body dumping spots, and of untimely deaths, and of investigations investigated that were already having been used for juxtaposed natures of predicate acts delivery system methods, and that are database oriented in a way to keep individually grouped and together corruption, self-valuing roles with it further and further to all locations, differentially too where the identity is being and having been used. Maintenance to that keeps self-valued increasingly, not just this having been, but the premises treated, the criminally foreign influenced quality / IES of fact-cheating nature as the law, while it is simultaneously recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed how they had child abuse, whether they want to admit it or not, that's also evidence. The people that run the prisons and their family members, locked into needing to hide lie progressions and uses of syntax nature, where and how they say, well, let the courts solve things, or have the police solve things, or have the politicians individually grouped in together, hundreds of nations at once, as hundreds of nations that simultaneously are obligated by nature to say stuff and to allow said stuff by and as a quality of fact treatment nature. They are denying awareness of this, self-valuing, all that is manifest, being and having been blamed on other things other than themselves and on itself, leaving that out. This is recorded, there is recorded conscious maintenance, real or made up, to the narratives about the shootings in the areas most tactically, most overtly, being and having been employed by that breaching method that is about the fact-treatment nature slavery of our founding parents, the theft of their identities, the frauds against their identities. The method then and now effectively self-cultivated, self-valued, having been self-cultivated, blaming on other things other than self, comparing that to the people also increasingly evidence not allowed used, most overtly forsaken by that. And what has to rolls with that, and as that needs to self-value and blame on other things other than selves, and offensively. So people have to pretend to be against racism because they're not being against premises treatments that are fake science, because they only have to have a little bit of a representative of each type of person per this narrative, per this method that built methods of entertained quality of syntax nature as function / S nature. That means identity as positive, negative treatments, value treatment simultaneously. But that means tied to our syntax nature per this method / S that is its own, that which revealed humanity, the species, individual group together. The cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall. The cell wall is connected. The body of value, not just the physical value, not just the metaphysical value. Syntax nature function is about subjects treatments that require use of the short words that we are having been prevented offensively. Now, Now people they know that no one's going to understand us if we keep talking and using what is actually recorded, where they have the overt / insidious through each age sickly distinctly, intercampuses of each age and nature in collusion, within as physical delusions, and within as worse than criminally incompetent identities of each of the sciences, speaking opinions and convictions regarding the law, for example, regarding elections, for example, regarding all that is actually involved, with uses of elections locations used remotely, all identity of the ground locations, the ones next to them too. And then is kept, these are also the sources of the branches of government. The only way we can counter this is staying on the sequence shifts, staying on what is actually recorded, all programs of each age and nature, and then further and further where they go. So I never went to go shoot the gun range in near Cromwell. Recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with people, involved with predicate acts, with a whole bunch of different countries, and with former director of the FBI in his defendant capacities in the 2006 district court case, and leading up to it as people also involved with predicate acts on and off Fox Connecticut News, and with roles, forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded, on and off the buildings next to them too, and with Wethersfield interbranch family members, through time involved identity thefts and frauds, uses of intercultural confessions and narratives, investigators and vetting identities, people associated with them that are involved with that, just simply by that. But then they connected to themselves, putting people in fake quotations, fake ties to themselves and to others, the people from our schools that we didn't have classes with. They recorded themselves trying to set up exceptions and exception nature criminally. They have all the identity of the ground locations as the subject. They have their lie progressions as subject. They have the identity of relativity as a subject in relationship to the subject of where and how it is recorded that there are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, juxtaposed natures of abuses of kids, medical, judicial, prosecutors, or people who work with the courts, overt criminal enterprises, the stewards of the Witness Protection Program, people associated with the body dumping and the investigations of that, and the people killed and the killers. And per them, per what is recorded, per what is simultaneously where and how. People use the truth about where the human fact should be nature is a victim and is a hero, for example. We have great heroes that are service people. They knew we need to have the sequence nature function, care for that identity. But simultaneously, first distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, we have to care for that finite, distinctly, non-distinctly as the individual. Because only together this shows, this is where correlation's identity is. Black, white, pink, purple, as they say. This is physical identities are simultaneously, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously valued to this invisible but still discernible method of revealing evolution's fruits and gifts. that was and is the function to that which is native pure, that which drives the ancient gaming system, that is more powerful than and is more finite than while being the value /s of the finite, grouped and altogether the parts of computers, for example. I did not read this, but I mean, I read up to it. I put other videos about how computers work. There are videos about, I'll put one about, I'll put a link to one about how the keyboards work. Or in other words, a data stream is coming in. It could be sound, it could be frequency, but and then you have to measure it. But in other words, in relationship to when someone types a key and they speak of binary, they're assigning a number or a letter or a key or a grouped keys, a binary number. Because then there's simultaneously there's programming. There's programming about how there's programming figuring out what sequence that came in, which location on which keyboard number, letter, or key or a combination of them was pressed. And then it further makes sense of it. And that is correlation. But that is not its complete course. And its complete course is by an identity of volume /s that is inseparably increasing identities of volume as value as nature / nature as value to those subjects. While as those subjects, so being and having been denied, each of them. And so this is how they keep, people's sense and sensibilities used by a method that uses the methods that entertain what you can't entertain. You can't pretend is integrity of judgment, of premises treatments, of identity treatments, of sequence treatments, and defend yourself or others from what exploits this to all identity ground locations, areas, states of every modern nation. To keep manifest, tactically, criminally, foreign influence premises treatments, sequence treatments, to keep that exploited, being and having been exploited, to keep the suits and ties, the counters to it as victims, incapable of affording the short words by all that is discernible through understanding first and simultaneously never letting go of first. The colonists distinctly, as our identity of volume is humanity. Because this is not about, more than being about who's right or wrong. It's about who's most wrong, or who's most right or wrong. It's about who's that method that has all those methods are right or wrong to extents and arrays of opinion natures, conviction natures, premises treatments, qualities, positive and negative convictions, opinions, delusions, raw. So everything we needed, we needed integrity of logic, originally instilled relationship to color, opinions on it, Your opinions, then they have to defend their uses of those identity ground locations where they speak, where they FBI, where they are agencies from. The agencies are collusion with people on the internet, advertising. Like, for example, I believe it's Identity Lock or something like that, Title Lock. People shouldn't have to defend themselves from online businesses and marketing and narratives like that. See, this is where democracy pretends the justice or the lack of justice because there's democracy or not. Leaving out if there's integrity, identity, ground, locations, areas, and states, and how they are originally pretending there was when there was not, as victims. But as victims, too, not fathoming how that would be and is exploited down to the finite details with all locations, areas, states. So they want to have debatable what people get emotional about. Same people who are simultaneously pretending they're about calmness because they're about the identity theft, frauds, sequence shifts, evidence racketeering that is involved with where and how they have the overt criminal enterprises, the private ones, all dysfunction involved with all locations, a method that then further new and keeps, responses to questions that are inherent to and of increasing value, to sickly distinctly adapting because of how it is maintained, having been self-cultivated from off campuses, from off all locations, roles, needs, natures, needing to hide the same sequence shifts, finite, active, progressive lies, and positive and negative treatments, and correlation/discorrelation, obfuscations, perpetrations, and cover-ups, and self-valued roles as identities, as styles of opinions/convictions, and as a sense and sensibilities with passions and emotions dishonestly, and speaking about others also while there's simultaneously delusions wrought. So we cannot separate from how they are them from their methods, where and how we have killers, body dumping spots, killers per them too, even if they made up those stuff in the news. The people associated with that in those investigations, they recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, confirmed. For example, if the kids of the executive branch record, confess, demonstrate, confirm their roles criminally foreign influenced, and with the corruption as that branch of government simultaneously differentially and juxtaposed. So as the uses of that identity, uses of overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and of spots like tied to body dumpings, campuses, where people go on and off campus, where they're going to walk up to it. This is a method that anticipates taking pictures because this is where and how they go, or have courts solve things, or have police to solve it, or have the political branch. This is down to using the mayors, their family members, the people they communicate with, involved with predicate acts with each age of fact, treatment, nature. Again, self-value. Because of how it is subjects' treatment. So in other words, the people that answer in the school, when they have child abuses, it's been tied to where they have reactions to types of crimes. and to types of narrative and roles with narratives already, with the branches of government here and there, where they have to pretend their integrity anyway. They can't do it because they were already fact cheap in nature roles with physical delusions. You know, this is where they have what they call reliable sources, and being and having been anticipated, used remotely. Where they're denying free speech while pretending to be about it, and where and how that is exploited, where and how the each branch distinctly, not distinctly, and simultaneously with that, with all these other natures of corruption as their identity self-value. That's evidence to correlation nature. So we have to address their methods. So if you call up and report simple things that are recorded online, they'll make allegations about what you said, and they'll replace what's actually recorded online, and they've been fabricating audio and video transcripts into interbranch databases and to private ones simultaneously, and so they could cross-reference allusions to pretend that it's and keep. They have falsified police reports and methods where they bring a whole bunch of different police reports because their families and themselves are kept needing to hide used roles with those bad things increasingly because of where and how. Identity is tied to sequence names. We have to use each other's names. Where and how we have this identity of value/value progression. Bach sings. It teaches things. So when nature longs, how nature longs. Is there anyone who could help me counter? Because Wethersfield's police chief is involved with medicines crimes, drug crimes, even sexual nature crimes on and off campuses through time. And 1 year ago, with people on my street involved with the years ago, and now involved with predicate acts, also with the wire with them forging, switching name Wethersfield Police, and these are people involved with former director of the FBI, leading up to and in the child in the 2006 district court case, that are involved through time with connections between houses next to the campuses and the campuses, where they use crime methods of making confessions to strangers so then they can pretend they know those strangers. And they make exceptions. All exceptions, exception nature, are maintained to keep effectively each age of correlation nature, sickly distinctly prevented its simultaneously inherent in active progressive means because of what is off campus is maintained, self-value. And where and how that can't defend itself, because that is increasing identity of relationship, /S/IES, as identity of relativity as a subject is, as a predicate is. So this is relativity science, and it is led by the identity of volume that is greater than infinity while being and having been more finite than three identities of zero. Its identity of relationship to itself, and the increasing value of that are what demonstrate why and how three natures of zero are manifest the way they are, for example. And so the numbers and the letters are juxtaposed because Trinity, it's one identity of volume, its identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that is inseparable from and as each identity of sequence / simultaneous nature. The smallest value is where it is value as forever nature, making more of itself. It is as these, I lost myself, as these 3 volumes as value as nature, where volume equals value as nature / nature as value. Is its identity of volume, its complete identity of volume, its complete identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that is 1. Its identity of relationship to itself. That's 2. And is the value of that 3. And the value of that 3 is, for example, is in relationship to the top or the bottom of the Z. So rather than put this in book first, I'm being prevented offensively, since before the World Trade Center attack, means to report what is actually recorded outside of courts and outside of police locations, because former director of the FBI and others tied to him and to military and military families that were involved with other foreign and domestic, and deans and their family members on and off campuses recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with investigations, and vetting identities before the World Trade Center attack, and people and syntax that is recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, being and having been exploited as part of what reveals remote uses of New Britain Superior Court and of Hartford courts and of Middletown courts are involved with, in campuses of each age and nature, methods that are recorded bound, and they are styles of that self-value where they can't, they're self-valuing that, so they're preventing or offensively preventing people free speech with their physical delusions while attaching us to fake words, fake locations, fake ties to themselves, fake natures of ties to themselves, fake ties to other people. Like this Joshua Julian on a Facebook page of a school of a principal child defender while that was still active. Him and others involved with that, with forensics locations and with state police and with and Wethersfield with Wethersfield police and everyone that works with locations. This is from off locations, maintained on and off them, self-valued corruption styles of logic, of uses of short words, increasingly that value. No one allowed short words of integrity. So this uses, as victims, they uses the reactions to it as predators, and they're non-reactions. So Wethersfield mayors, and the branches of government, they try to make, they need to, per where they are victims used already being used remotely. They have to pretend that people are making allegations, or they have to pretend people are with delusions, but using no real premises. Inclusion with sequence shifts, cover-up styles, offensively pretending passions and emotions. So in really lying about what the science of passions and emotions, there's a reason why touch, feeling, has a relationship to feeling that is in metaphysics and physics simultaneously, distinctly, not distinctly, and simultaneously. In as identities, value / value progression, identity of volume, science. So it's not all right that they have people with theories, intersciences abridged, and with delusions while they are rules, crimes, predators, and being and having been kept needing to hide that offensively. And see, that is with, it's all right if they did this, legitimately. That's why it's necessary to know the rules, crimes, predators. Because what is actually recorded, if you take it properly, it doesn't leave out the overt criminal enterprises and the private ones, and the killers, and the statistics, and the people associated with uses of those statistics and such, where they are syntax nature, where we are function /s, no longer native pure. No longer means to gift the Santa Claus, which then gives us. Boxing so much. Boxing. It teaches things. YouTube.com/user/Romulus Waugh. My name is Anthony Waugh. Underneath the YouTube videos, there is a red button that says subscribe. If you press that, right while you're doing that, what pops up is a little bell. If you press all, that way, if these serious videos you don't like or whatever, all the time or whatever, you won't miss the little rap guy and friends. They are still the accumulation of a counterposition /s as nature acting. But they will become moving counterpositions in identity grounds, identity of relationships to itself, position. So, YouTube ground I don't officially represent YouTube, but I have a YouTube channel through them, and so also where and how there are legal agreements since founding. What led up to and leads up to the signing of them is also mixed with people with names forging and switching. Is also tied to where and how they have complete possession over the identities of the agencies. Now, see, for example, and of the branches of government, and of their relationship to women's rights and that, and how they and their roles with where and how this is commonly self-valued, where again each subject is an identity of relativity /IES, where subjects have individual, grouped, and together significance, distinctly and non-distinctly and simultaneously, as identity of the ground, relationships, as nature, environment is about a course that has a quality of fact treatment nature. Onto 5, identity of 1/3/5, distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous identities of sequence /simultaneous nature. We'll examine this. Vaccines Lefist. The ancient snow people are manifest to teach this. The ancient /timeless snow people. But since before computers, the ancient snow people teach about what is variable, what is constant, and how what is constant has a semi-nature relationship to what is actually constant. See, even exceptions in exception nature in this method of science uses the only identity that is strongest thing, that is strong, while being the identity that is the most delicate thing, while being the value that is active, that is positive or negative to itself. A quality of fact, human nature speaking for the law had obligations as victims that this method offensively prevents them. The short words, so increasingly the long words of defending, per their roles, with the method sickly distinctly against each age of fact, human nature simultaneously. Uses of how they use people's names. So we have to see outside of courts, outside the identity ground locations, formal, informal, means to communicate without people offensively. What is actually recorded is how offensively they have the branches of government involved with identity thefts and frauds. As identity thefts and fraud styles, needs and natures and cases every day, originally and still. But we have to have mandated law followed outside of courts. So we have to have simple statements. This place is messing, and they say, then they vet it. They vet information when people say things. The people that they've been having people call in things. They have their little rat sources. They're just making up fake things, fake ties to people. What is actually recorded offensively? People tied all along the Route 3 that goes by the state judicial branch offices. People recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Strangers sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. Their roles were juxtaposed natures of organized crime with little kids and with people involved with medical racketeering and with syntax racketeering and so therefore function racketeering. And there's a databases. This is databases oriented, but it is first identity oriented, and then ground oriented, and then database oriented, which is relevant because there are other names and motivations and subjects that are inseparable, and physical delusions that are evidence inseparable from the correlation/non-correlation that is recorded still self-valued in relationship to that predicate acts delivery system method. I'm not a lawyer against our founding parents, let alone against everyone. So I'll try to keep the tone of my voice better. I realized in the beginning of it my tone was not right because I'm trying to show you something. They're lying about what is recorded over the phones with people already proven child offenders. And they were getting away with it because they were using how they have types of abuses and types of crimes and roles with them. Used to have types of experts. Used to keep lipoaggressions being and having been offensively, actively, and increasingly needed to be hid by the people involved with campuses of each age and nature simultaneously. Intercampuses and intra-campuses, vertically and horizontally and simultaneously. It sounds complicated. It works the same way computers work. Has them having to mimic, pretend to be simultaneous nature, which is that identity of volume, which positive and negative are about. So they have been confessing, recording, and demonstrating to little kids simultaneously, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, the overt criminal enterprises as they claim themselves. The private ones as they claim themselves and simultaneously pretend other also evidence. And as the people associated with body dumping spots, like a Faenza family, involved with all people all along Route 3, a Kerr family, people on the streets off of there, like that, on Meadowgate, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with judges and prosecutors, and with the Dillon family, with military families, and with people who answer the phones, for the Wethersfield Police, and people involved with wire crimes through time with Town Line Drive, involved with identity thefts and frauds with them, where they create instances where they know where someone's going to be and they lie about what led up to that. They attach everyone to fake words, fake recorded audio and video transcripts. They have intelligence community pretend they didn't realize things that were proven, tied to how, where, and how. They have like job sites where they have a whole bunch of countries per them, like UPS. Involved with before I went to work there, and I did things to make them take positions because they took they had people that I didn't know when I was a kid who set up exceptions where they could pretend other, and that was exploited as people involved with predicate acts in relationship that are relevant to that which I noted to you before the World Trade Center attack, Hartford courts, and the Britain courts, and military, and a whole bunch of other countries were recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with predicate acts, with off-campuses locations that are also tied to the on-campus location predicate acts and uses of them, not just in relationship to the World Trade Center attack, but as people involved with what is actually recorded being and having been, which is inter-campuses and intra-campuses, manifest, and uses of manifest by methods that are recorded bound by and used remotely by one method that is clear as day and night, are about to clear, increasing identity of value progression, identity of volume, as value as nature / nature as value, as its identity of relationship to itself as that, only increasing. And so as the value of that only increasing, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, so discernibly. So we have to examine how and why offensively they put people like I don't know Paul Abted and nor his sister, but they're recorded, confessed, and demonstrated. I don't know if you know. I haven't been there. Apparently, they took a picture of me standing in front of him one time, but on Franklin Avenue or Wethersfield Avenue. I think it was Franklin Avenue. Those are people involved with FBI and with a whole bunch of other countries, overt criminal enterprises and medical families on off Hartford Hospital that made him know my name and his sister know my name and me know their names. So per where and how they have sense and sensibilities, per where they have to pretend other, where they have this method of identity thefts and frauds. Now there's a Leahy family also that are doctors with a whole bunch of other foreign and domestic doctors that are involved through time with predicate acts on my street too, behind my back. You know if you and streets around. So if you think someone knows each other, they pretend they hear things and stuff like that. Like they seed illusions that are furthered from where and how they invested people, roles, needs, and natures as victims. Needed to self-value, blamed on other things other than self. The real causes of negative value, nature, progressions, acts, nature, the real causes of fake passions and emotions with uses of positive and negative treatments, with uses of America's name, while using passions and emotions. Still fake as day. While still we're using where it is real, humanity volume, that is exception nature increasing value. To deny that, it's short words. To deny the short words of that exploiting it, which we have countless means to demonstrate as countless means to claim needs for immediate reliefs to all locations.